Hey guys, welcome back to another educational video. This is the youtube.com/GenericTechSupport channel. If you guys are watching this, you should know that everything we do is for educational value. All the software is purchased or used under legal availability. This channel does not promote or suggest the use of pirated software. All links are located on the Tech Guy 1 wiki page. This channel, again, is for educational purposes only. Like and subscribe for more content. I provide you guys the best practices or best experience and insight into doing things, but I don't know everything. So if you guys know something that I don't, please leave it in the comments. Thanks again for watching. Hey guys, welcome to Windows 11, Vanilla Edition. In this particular operating system, we don't have anything configured. This is an out-of-the-box setup that was installed as a base configuration. And today I'd like to answer a question that was brought to me by somebody that I work with. The question is, if you don't have a Windows password, is your Windows platform or Windows desktop less secure than if you do have a Windows password for authentication into your machine? So before we dig into this, I would actually love it if you guys would do me a favor and add a comment down below as to whether or not you think that this machine is going to be less secure, more secure, or unfazed by having a Windows password or not having a Windows password. Now, keep in mind with this particular desktop, I'm logged in as an administrator. That administrator account does not have a password on it currently. And this particular machine also doesn't have any other configuration on it, right? So we don't have remote desktop services turned on. We don't have any inbound connection configuration turned on. We're also not running any additional software. This is right out of the box. So the reason why this was brought up in my job or at my office is because I was asked by a junior technician specifically, well, with the Windows password not turned on, can't people just walk into your Windows operating system? And I had to explain that in the legacy versions of Windows, there used to be a failsafe built into Windows that would block your ability to access a system because you couldn't authenticate without a password. So basically, without having a password on the system, you were more secure than you were having a password because you couldn't UNC path to the system because there was no way to UNC path without an authentication, and you couldn't authenticate with a blank password, and you couldn't use a password because there was none set to the machine. The alternative also was RDS, right? So remote desktop services. You can't remote desktop to a system with no password because you can't pass authentication for a blank or a null value. So the question is does this exist in Windows 11? Can we use Windows 11 the same way we would use, like, say, Windows XP or Windows 2000, where we had the ability to use the legacy configuration for null expression for your password? So in other words, you wouldn't be able to actually authenticate to the system if there was no password on the system. So at that point, having no password was more secure than having a password that was just a bad password. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do on this particular desktop is I'm going to change the desktop background to what I have here. And the reason why is because I want to differentiate between this system and the other system we're going to use to test and access this one. So the first thing we're going to do on this system is we're actually going to jump into the computer manager on this particular desktop. And under computer management, we're going to go to the local users. We're going to make sure that our only existing account, which is an administrator account, is configured for access. In other words, all these things are disabled. So if we go in here, we could actually show account is disabled. But that's what that down arrow actually means, is that the account itself is disabled. Now, if the account is disabled, then obviously you can't authenticate to it. It's disabled. We already have the guest account disabled as well. So Paul is the only account that has administrative access on this machine. And right now, at least Paul does not have a password. So there we go. Paul has no password. So let's now configure our other machine and attempt to UNC path into this machine as Paul without a password on the system. Okay, so before we jump in here and we actually take a look, let's jump into our Windows 11 machine here and let's take a look specifically at our IP configuration. So as we could see, we have our configuration set for 242.100. Now, keep that in mind, because what we're going to do now is we're going to do a net share. We're going to take a look and see what we have. So we have our default share, which is our $. So we should be able to access our admin share with no password from our other machine with the $. Now, if this works the way it used to work, when I try to access this machine with my administrator account on the other machine, it should fail. It shouldn't allow me to access it because I don't have a way to authenticate to this machine. Now, this changes drastically if you're on a domain. On a domain, you need passwords. But off of a domain in workgroup mode, assuming this works like it used to work, we should see, once we get on that other machine and try to UNC path to this particular IP address with $, we shouldn't be able to see this machine. Okay guys, so now we're on our Windows 10 machine. So let's take a look on this machine. We'll do an IP config all on this as well. So we can see on this particular machine we're on 192.168.242.101. This machine's actually Windows 10. I figured I'd just use Windows 10 versus two Windows 11 machines to test the theory. It should still work the same or not work the same. It shouldn't matter as far as the versions. Again, that legacy configuration without having your password and securing the operating system to not access it goes back to the days of like Windows 2000. So this really, in all honesty, should still fail or work depending on what they changed in the Windows operating system. So let's take a look at that. So the first thing we could do here is let's see if we could actually map the drive. So I'm going to attempt to map the network drive here, and we'll see if we can get the Z drive to map without using a password or authentication. So as you can see, I got caught up in the fact that it wasn't doing anything, so I figured I'd just keep hitting enter a couple times to force it to actually throw the error. But we got system error 67 that we can't actually get to this location. We can't access this share. Now that's because we don't have a password. If we did have a password, we could actually access the $, just like this through our net use commands through our Windows 10 machine. So with that said, we know that that doesn't work. We can't access it even though that there's no password on that. We can't pass no password values in order to map the network drive. But let's see if we could do it through the GUI. Okay, so I got this staged here for our 192.168.242.100 \C$. Again, now I'm going to a machine that has no password on it. Let's see what happens when I attempt to access it. Okay, so as you can see, given enough time, we'll still error out that we don't have access to it. So let's jump back and actually give this a helping hand. Let's give it a worst case scenario. Let's turn the firewall off on our Windows 11 machine and see if we can access this with the firewall disabled from our Windows 11 machine. Okay guys, so as you can see, I have turned the firewall off on our Windows 11 machine. So now let's jump back to the Windows 10 machine and see if we could at least access this machine in any way, shape, or form. Again, no password set for Paul. Okay, so since we have our firewall turned off on our Windows 11 machine, let's now use our Windows 10 machine to see if we can ping the 242.100 address. All right, so we can ping it. So we know that it's live. We have access as far as ICMP. We're getting replies back from the system indicating that the system is live. Now, we also know that since we have a live system, we should at this point be able to use our net use command to map that network drive, that $C$. But just for the sake of this, let's see if we could do it through our GUI. See, now we're getting prompted for creds, which we didn't get prompted before for credentials. So we know now that there's no password, but let's see if we type in Paul with no password, if we could access this. Okay, so let's give it a shot. And we cannot. We can't access it with Paul with no password, which means that the legacy configuration from the days of Windows 2000 still stands tall in Windows 11. It means that if you have no password on your machine, you're actually more secure than you are if you have a crappy password on your machine. Because a crappy password can be breached and somebody can just get into the machine by putting your username and your crappy password in. But if you have no password, that means you can't access that machine through, at least through UNC. Let's go another step. Let's go back over to our Windows 11 machine and let's enable remote desktop services and see if we could RDP to that system as Paul with no password. Okay, so we're on our Windows 11 machine, and what I've done now is I've gone into our settings, and then under System, we could go into Remote Desktop and turn it on. Now I could leave NLA turned on or turn it off. For the sake of this, I'm actually going to turn it off and even lower the security further to see if that makes a difference. We could turn it on and test that as well. I think maybe for this, at least at the beginning, we'll leave it on. We'll give this system the best benefit of the doubt with newer technology. And then we'll remove the newer technology and see if that makes it, gives us the ability to circumvent it to get in with no password. I suspect that it doesn't make any difference one way or another, that we'll still be able to remote desktop, or not, rather, we still won't be able to remote desktop to the system, regardless, because there's no password. But let's take a look now, since we have this set where we have remote desktop turned on. We're going to use the default 3389. Let's check to make sure 3389 is at least listening. Here we go. We see 3389 on UDP, and we have 3389 on TCP. So we should be able to remote desktop to the system now, especially since we have our firewall turned off. I'm not going to do the firewall configuration. There's no point. We have the firewall disabled. Let's see if we can remote desktop to the system now as Paul with no password. Okay, so now we're back on our Windows 10 machine. IP address of 192.168.242.100. We can go back over here and we can hit the up arrow real quick, make sure we can still ping it, which we can. Let's go back over here and try to connect. Okay, so we're going to get prompted again for creds. So we're going to do Paul, because that's the name of our user account, and we have no password. Let's see what happens when we click OK if we're able to remote desktop to that system with no password. Oh, there we go. We don't have the ability to access that system with no password. So you could read this if you want, but basically what this means is that on our configuration, without a password, you don't have the ability to remote desktop to it. So now we've confirmed that with no password, you can't UNC path, you can't access the admin share, you can't remote desktop to the system. And this is all with no password. Let's go a further step, right? So let's say you know what the username is of the machine you want to log into. What if we change our username on our client machine or our Windows 10 machine to match the username on the other system? If we're both Paul, could we pass credentials? Now, something to keep in mind is that in the Windows XP in 2000 days, if you did that, you were given the ability to access the other machine. That you didn't need the password at that point because it would assume that you're using the same user account. Now, that may be the case still, it may not. But we should take a look to see if that changes our access controls or accessibility into our Windows 11 machine if we happen to be able to guess what the username is on that other machine. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to open up our computer management. We're going to go to local users and groups and users. We have a mic account. What we're going to do is we're going to right click and do new user. We're going to call it Paul. We're going to choose create and close. So there's our Paul account. So let's make this a member of the administrators group. Click OK. So now we have a Paul account. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to log out of the system as Mike, and we're going to log back into the system as Paul. Okay, so now we're logged in as Paul. Let's go into our command prompt. Do Q user. So you can see the username is Paul. We're on the console, active 7:41 p.m., 7:42 p.m. That's the console active that we're on right now. Let's make sure we can still ping that other machine from the Paul account. And we can. So now let's see if we can access the admin share. From the Paul account with no password. Nope, we sure can't. So it looks like they actually fixed that. So that means that Windows 10 and 11 now adds the additional security to the legacy account that allows you to basically not authenticate to that other machine with the same username with no password. Because in the Windows 2000 and XP days, this would actually work. You were able to access your $$ from another machine as long as you use the same username. So you could have no password on two machines. You'd still be able to access it because you have the same username. So let's go another step here. And let's do MSTSC, or Microsoft Terminal Services Console, for those who need to know what that is. It's 192.168.242.100. We're going to hit connect. We're going to do Paul, because we're on a Paul account, and we're going to click on OK. And we're going to get the restriction error again, which indicates that we can't log in. Let's go another step, though, this time. Let's do connect. And then let's do the computer name, which is GTS11 /Paul. And then let's try to connect with the Paul account from the GTS11 machine without a password and see if this will work. No, we get the same thing. So we still can't authenticate because there's no password. So there you go, guys. I mean, that basically tells us that the legacy configuration of having no password on the console still makes your machine more secure than having a crappy password. You'd be better off having no password than a crappy password. So if you don't have a password, or you don't want to use a password, and you just want to use the basic logon, the bypass, no authentication, this is totally acceptable. I mean, honestly, you wouldn't have a situation where if your account had a 4-letter or 4-character really terrible password, again, logging into the console. If you're using like the Windows Live authentication method to get into your Windows 10 and 11 machines, you're on your own. You're going to have to create a password. You're going to have to create multi-factor authentication. You have to go through all those processes. But if you don't have a password, even with the Windows Firewall turned off, people can't access your machine remotely. There's no way to access it without a password actually enabled on the machine. Now, if you set a password and somebody goes into here and uses like a loft crack or some other third-party software to just continuously ping that thing over and over and over again with password data, eventually they'll get into it. But if you don't have a password, they could do that till they're blue in the face. They'll never get into the actual machine. All right, guys, so now that we've done all of the base work, our out-of-the-box configuration, we've confirmed that if you have no password, realistically, you're more secure than you are if you have a terrible password. So with that said, let's now make it a little easier. Let's set up a file share. Let's give the Paul account full access to the file share, and let's share it and see if we can still access that file share or not, still with no password configuration. Okay, so to do that, pretty simple. We're just going to open up File Explorer, local drive. I'm going to choose New Folder. I'm going to call it Paul. Great. Let's actually go to more options. Let's do a rename real quick on this, and then let's rename it Paul Share so it's less confusing when we see it on the other end. We're going to right click on this, and we're going to go to Properties. We're going to go to Sharing. We're going to go to Advanced Sharing. We're going to share this folder, go to Permissions, remove the Everyone group, and we're going to add Paul. Check name, great, Paul. So Paul's set up for share access. Now let's go into our security and go into advanced. We're going to disable inheritance. We're going to convert it to explicit permissions. We're going to remove the users group. I mean, in reality, we'd probably leave it, but it doesn't matter. We're going to remove the users group. We're going to add, select the principal. We're going to choose Paul. Check name. Okay. Modify, read, write. Great. Hit OK. Click apply. Click OK. So actually, let's go in there real quick, just real quick. The The reason why you don't do full control is full control gives the user ACL access, which means they have access to your access control list on your system. So if they have share full access and this is set for full, they can actually go into the share and give themselves domain admin rights to the actual file share and the root directory. So you never want to give them full access. You just want to give them the modify, the write, read, list folder, read, and execute. That's it. That's what they should have at the most, unless they're a domain admin or using some kind of backups software that needs full access. Otherwise, don't do that. It's a bad idea. Okay, so we got our share configured. We're just going to hit OK, and we're going to close out of this thing. Great. So we now have a share. We're going to go over into our command prompt. One of these things doesn't really make any difference. So we do net share. We should be able to see Paul share, which we do. It's right here. So we have the Paul share configuration. So let's now jump back over into our Windows 10 machine and see if we can access the Paul share as Paul with no password from an account named Paul from a different machine. Okay, so just to confirm, we still have access. Let's just ping it real quick. There we go. We still have access. That's good. Now let's go and see if we can access this machine by doing 192.168.242.100. I'm not going to add anything after this, and I'm going to hit OK. And there we go. It tells you straight out that we don't have access to the system to see the shares on that system. Let's see if we could define it and forcibly map this manually with a defined path to the actual share versus the root share. All right, guys, so what do you think? Is this going to work? My guess is it doesn't work still, but let's take a look. No, it's not going to work. It's going to throw an error. Yep, there we go. We don't have access to it. So we know that Paul share doesn't work. We can't access the root directory with no password. Here's the question is can we manually map it? Perhaps. So let's go to map a network drive. Choose the Z drive. We're just going to do whack. Go to Paul share. We're going to choose to connect using different credentials and click on finish. And we're just going to type in Paul. There we go. We still can't do that. See, blank passwords aren't allowed. All right, so we went through all this now to prove that this doesn't work, but I'm assuming you guys want to see that it does work. So what we'll do is we'll add a password to the Paul account on both sides of the fence. On the Windows 10 machine, I'll add a password. I'll add a password on the Windows 11 machine. Different passwords. And then we'll jump back into here, and I will map the network drive, and I will show you how to access it, and I'll even prove that you could remote desktop connect to the system as well. Okay, so what I did is I actually logged back in as the mic account, so even the usernames are different. We have different passwords now set between the two machines. So the first thing we're going to do is let's UNC path to the actual share. All right, so let's do Paul. There we go. So we have access, and then we can actually create a folder here and say, see me. All right, so we have a file now, our folder rather now called Can You See Me? So now when we jump into our Windows 11 machine, we should be able to see that folder. We'll take a look here shortly. Let's also do a remote desktop session directly to that machine. There we go. So there's Paul's share. And if we jump into here now and we take a look at our C drive and that our Paul share, we'll see Can You See Me? So we are on that machine, remote desktoped in. And that's because there's a password on this machine. If there's no password, none of this function actually works. But from a security perspective, that means that having no password is actually, again, more secure than having a bad password. So take what you want from this video, but I built this as a proof of concept for my coworker to watch so that way he could see that that legacy configuration is still stand and still solid and still provides adequate security to stop access to the system. So again, having no password, it kind of still works in a legacy configuration to secure a Windows system. Hopefully you guys learned something on this, and thanks for sticking around.